Welcome back to Mate at Home, the sister channel to Snus at Home. I assume most of you watching will be coming from there, so if you're here, thank you very much for stopping by. This is my other passion, yerba mate, tea, generally speaking, the leaf hobbies as they're called, but yerba mate shares the most in common with tobacco and, to be quite frank, has the most caffeine out of any drug food, I guess you could say. It is far and away my favorite. It takes a little bit of time to prepare, and some of the stuff is hard to get, but nevertheless, I love it. I'm comfy, I got my blankie on, it's gonna be a good day. This is a review of Playadito, the Liebig Cooperativa, I think it is. I've got the bag by me. Colonia Liebig Corrientes, agricultural cooperative. Liebig was started by German immigrants, and then you have a lot of European migration to Argentina. The plantations gave them pretty easy work, and they work, and eventually all the farmers that kind of grew out of that range formed a cooperative that now produces many sorts of yerba, including this one. Playadito is named after one of the locations where they first set up their farms. This is how the reviews are going to be. I'm going to do a first impressions. You probably have already seen that video earlier in the week. And then I'm going to spend a week just drinking this yerba so I can take notes, form a pretty good opinion of it, and give you guys better information about it. See whether or not it's worth getting. Many of you, I assume, will be European, where yerba mate is kind of hard to get. In North America, it's not that easy either unless you live in Miami, like I do. Oh, fantastic. Let's talk about some facts about Playadito. Playadito is what I would consider to be the quintessential, normal, Argentinian, unsmoked yerba mate. What do I mean by that? Number one, Argentinian. Each country has its own style of yerba. So Argentina, probably going to be the one that people are most familiar with. It's got a medium amount of leaves. It's got a medium amount of sort of stem matter, what they call palo, just means stick in Spanish. And it's also unsmoked, which has to do with how the yerba is processed. Because if you pick a leaf off of a tree and just leave it in a pile, it's going to oxidize, it's going to compost. So they cook it very quickly. Same process is done with green tea in Japan, China, India, things like that, to stop the enzymatic processes that would lead towards this sort of oxidation. In ye olden times, the natives to Patagonia would use a wood fire to do this, and this is still done with a lot of very delicious yerba mates. It's called the barbacoa method, barbecue method, if you will. We're going to be using a lot of Spanish terminology. I'll try to translate as much as I possibly can, but I was born in the United States, so I'm not going to do a great job, and we'll probably have to use a lot of those words themselves. The barbecue method, they cook the leaves over a campfire, and it gives it this delicious smoky taste. A lot of tobacco smokers who use pipe tobacco or things like that will recognize that same smoky character, a lot of the same flavors in the liqueur of the drink itself, from things like dark-fired Virginias, dark-fired Kentuckys, Latakia. I really enjoy barbacoa, but that's not what we're talking about today. Playadito is a more modern, cleaner type of yerba mate. It is cooked with hot air very quickly. So the hot air doesn't carry any scent. It just dries out the yerba. It kills the enzymatic processes and it cures the yerba mate, after which it's dried and then cut and shipped off to market where we enjoy it today. And most yerba on the market is going to be this hot air method. I know they have a specific term for it, but it escapes me at the moment. Argentina, also being the country that consumes the most yerba mate, they're kind of associated with it, means that this you can kind of consider to be the most standard yerba mate in the world, besides Brazilian stuff, but that's not for today. I like Playadito for the same reason that I like yerba mate in general, which is that It tastes good. Yerba mate doesn't really taste like tea, it doesn't taste like coffee, it doesn't taste like tobacco, it doesn't taste like a lot of stuff. It is a flavor all by itself, and Playadito, I think, has a lot of the most comforting flavors that you can find in yerba mate. The drink, I would actually say, tastes most like this hot air yerba mate from Argentina is going to be like lager, light beer, pilsners, and which is such a strange thing to think about. Number one, nobody drinks lagers hot unless you're like freaky and crazy. And number two, it's just a leaf. How can you get this sort of flavor? But when I drink Playadito, I find a lot of the same fragrances, the same flavors, the same body that I would find in a lot of lagers that I do here. So this is sort of the beginning of the service, and I'm tasting things like malt. I'm tasting a little bit of like deep resinous herbaceousness, just a very small amount. Playadito is not known for like big bombastic flavor, but just a little bit to kind of get the edge on, and it's really only when I steep it for a long time. I will probably have to do a video explaining how yerba mate is used and things like that for people coming over from the other channel, which is fine. I love talking about this stuff. I don't get to do it enough, and the other channel that preceded this one deleted in a ridiculous incident, so I can't wait to build this one back up. Of course, you can't make an association between yerba mate, Playadito in particular, and not talk about the graininess of yerba mate in general, but especially Playadito. So Playadito and other brands under that same cooperative, Liebig, the brand name for a type of yerba mate that they put out, and a couple of other ones, they all have this deep malted grain taste. It can be very, very strong. In fact, Liebig, I'll put a photo of up on screen. Liebig, the bag, has probably the most intense and singular taste of Frosted Flakes that I found anywhere besides Frosted Flakes itself. I mean, it tastes like sugary corn, which is an incredible thing that you're able to get from a leaf that's been like steamed. A tree leaf. This is a holly. This is a big plant. It's not like tea, it's not like coffee. It's its own thing, it really is. The same Frosted Flake malted grain flavor can be found here, but in Playadito, those sorts of grain flavors tend towards the bready side. If you've ever had like Nature's Own honey wheat loaf, it's a really regular brand of sliced bread in America. That bread tastes almost like what this tastes like. I'm not going to say that this is a honey tasting yerba mate, but the honey loaf wasn't particularly honeyish as well. It just had this really distinct brown flour smell, vaguely sweet, and that's what I'm getting here besides the resinousness, besides the notes of sugared grain that this obviously does have. I should mention as well, most of these notes that I'm getting are gotten from taking this at the 160 to 175 Fahrenheit temperature range. If you drink this cooler, I've noticed that you can get a lot more fruit flavor out of it. And I still get a lot of that fruit flavor from drinking it hot, but the grain flavor really overrides that. As we continue through the rest of the service, it'll start developing this very like plum, stone fruit, dried prune kind of taste. If you want to get there quicker, you could steep the yerba longer, but you're going to have a lot of off flavors come out that way in addition to the stone fruit flavor, and it's something I don't really recommend getting up to. It's a nice thing to be able to talk about yerba mate as well, instead of something like green tea, oolong tea, coffee less so, but mostly tea and things like that. We made the allusion to this having sort of the same flavor profile as a lot of beers. There's another similarity, which is unlike tea and a lot of other beverages, yerba mate has this really intense, big, bold expression of flavor that tea sometimes falls short of. So when I talk about things like cereal notes, or when I talk about things like the taste of like honey loaf bread or things like that, or when I talk about a resinous sharpness in the background, if you're watching this and you're thinking like, well, surely he's not talking about those things actually. He's talking about like tastes that remind him of those tastes, and they're just kind of like whispering and on the breeze. No, I really, really do taste those things in this. Yerba mate is a very strong tasting thing. I mean, this entire gourd is basically filled to the brim with the leaf, so there's no way that you couldn't taste anything that I'm talking about. It's a fantastically delicious and powerful sensory experience, yerba mate. Playadito in particular also has a pretty big, bold, heavy body to it. When you drink something like yerba, where there's a lot of plant material in it, you're going to get a lot of like soluble fiber, the saponins, things like that. Yerba mate can have a mouthfeel that is very much like bone broth, just very heavy on the palate, heavy on the tongue, very rich, very delicious, very velvety. In that way, it can be a lot like wine or things like that, which also have pretty big and bold mouthfeel sometimes. And much like wine, there are also yerbas that have a very thin mouthfeel, maybe a salty mouthfeel, things like that. The mouthfeel on Playadito is pretty on par with something like chicken noodle soup. And I know that sounds really gross, but it's just imagine like this velvety, plush, sort of heavy feeling in the mouth. It's not the heaviest bodied yerba mate I've had. A lot of barbacoa that I've had, I think, oh gosh, I can't remember. I think La Obreña had a really, really heavy body, in addition to being a barbacoa that I really enjoyed. This one has it, but it's not quite as heavy. And there's nothing bad with a light body or a heavy body, but sometimes you're not in the mood for something that kind of sticks around on your palate for so long. In traditional services, they're going to be sharing this among lots of different people, so it's nothing to worry about, but this is well over the 300 milligram mark, so be advised. Construction-wise, this is a very good yerba mate, really tolerant of a lot of very shitty equipment. This spoon is not the best. This is like a straw of sheet metal with some slots carved out of it. This is not a nice spoon bombilla. This is very far away from any fancy bombillas that you would pay more than $10 for. I think I paid $1.50 for this straw, so... doing very well for us today. I would chalk that up to this not having that much dust at all. Some, especially cheaper yerba mate, can be very dusty. Dust just happens when you rub leaves together. It also has a pretty good amount of palo in it. Not a huge amount, but enough to where the yerba still works. I like yerbas that are just leaf, sin palo they call them, but it's sometimes, especially if you don't have the right spoon for them, or if you're not good at building the mate inside the gourd, they can really get stuck together and kind of claggy. I forget which yerba I had that was like this. It was a La Merced one, but it really just like glued itself together around my spoon, and I really could not draw from it. And that was a good spoon too. So really easy to drink this stuff. In general, I'm going to say that this is a really pleasant yerba, and this is also, as many have said before, an excellent place to start if you do want to get into yerba mate. If you're shopping around for different yerbas online, just to kind of, if you want to experiment with it, I would recommend buying this one and then buying another one that would be a barbacoa, just to kind of get your bases covered. It also wouldn't be a bad idea to buy a green mate, they call them, one where it's really, really, really fresh. Those can sometimes have very nice lemony tastes. A lot of Brazilian yerbas are like that. Very green, fresh, chlorophyllic, citric, camphoric tastes. Really good stuff. Of course, if you'd like to support the channel, I do sell these gourds in the web pages below, and every penny helps go towards supporting the channel. They're 3D printed and then covered with a special 400-degree Fahrenheit tolerant food grade, food safe silicone on the inside, which means that bacteria will basically never take root, and you can drink your yerba as hot as you can tolerate without worrying about breaking the gourd or leaching plastic nasties into your stuff. My name has been Matt. This has been Yerba at Home, and I will see you next time. Cheers.